Well, I'll say it again. Let's call the meeting to order and let's have a roll call.
One moment.
You hear us, Mike?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm using one screen today, so I don't have all the controls I usually do. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Bagby is present and Councilmember Cruz is absent.
Thank you. And are there any communications?
No communications, Chair.
Great, and then we'll move on to item 3, public comment, where members of the public may comment on any matter not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on item on the agenda when the subcommittee considers that item. To make a public comment, use the raise your hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or dial *9 if you are just using a telephone. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the subcommittee? Michael, anyone in the audience too? I don't see anybody. So with that, we will move on to item 3 and approval of minutes. I did have a couple of edits, and that would be the spelling of Mr. Kozlowski's name. If you just do a search and replace. We could, that's all I found. City Manager, did you see any other corrections or?
No, I did note the spelling for
Yeah.
Rob Kozlowski, so we can
Update the minutes. That would be fantastic. Okay, so
if you want to move approval.
I will move approval.
I'll second.
Well, there we go then. So moving on with those, we'll approve the minutes of June 21st with the spelling of the name corrected. So moving on to item 5, current items for discussion, and item A is Bay Rend Resilient Library Network Initiative. The status of Sonoma County Library and city collaboration, if there is one.
Yeah, I did a little research into the program. So really what it provides is technical assistance outlining specific energy upgrades and cost estimates for a library to achieve their goals. So participants will also be matched with funding and financing experts to receive tailored guidance on how to finish Bay Rend's recommended energy upgrades. So like we discussed at the city council meeting, our collaboration with the turnkey program is really already assessed the
Right.
library. So maybe we can, they're in the Bay Rend is planning to do 10 libraries in the whole Bay Area. So, I think we're kind of covered through our participation in turnkey programs.
Yeah, I was thinking it might be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We may not be a good candidate because we do city owns the building, but I just want to make sure that, and I know that Jane Elias is monitoring this through our CPA as well as her role at the county. So if there are any opportunities that come up, I just want to, make sure that if there is interest in the library board, that and if we need a parallel path, great. And if it's not something that's appropriate for us, then I just wouldn't want to miss the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe we could, you want to move this to standing?
We can move it
or-
to standing. That would be great, because I just wanted to make sure that we got that we didn't miss out on an opportunity.
Yeah, no, it seems like a pretty cool program. It's just,
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5B, complete street safety assessment update. How are we doing on that?
Yeah, Chair, thanks. Just as a refresher for anybody who might listen in, we coordinated with UC Berkeley, who funded a private consultant to conduct a complete street safety assessment. The focus was on First Street, East First Street, Osti Road, and Citrus Fair Drive between or east of the boulevard. The consulting firm, as I understand, has completed their work and they're waiting for UC Berkeley to complete their vetting of the report, include any additional documentation as the supporter for the program. So we're just kind of in wait and see mode to get a final copy of the report. With that said, the consulting firm that we did engage in, or that engaged in the effort, as part of the assessment, we did identify that there was another intersection of concern. That was the Hillsburg Avenue at South Cloverdale Boulevard intersection, which was outside their scope, so they could provide us with a scope of work to address what kind of improvements might work at that intersection. And since that time, we have obtained a scope of work and entered into a professional services agreement with Fair and Peers to do a planning evaluation to look at lighting levels, pedestrian safety concerns, and to come up with a set of recommendations and proposed drawing exhibits that would identify improvements to that intersection that are in addition to the improvements that we already made in the way of bulb out sidewalks and enhanced LED flashing lights. But there are some additional improvements that could further improve pedestrian safety. So that the agreement has been completed, and now we're just going to wait for next steps, and we can report back on the status of that. I think the goal will be to have some recommendations in terms of improvements that will likely would need us to go after formal bid and get those improvements done. We can make an operation.
All right, sounds like a phone. So 2 follow-up questions. Hopefully I'll remember that. I don't think we've discussed this really before, but how do you see this initiative coalescing with the Vision Zero that we're participating in with SCTA? And then and then my follow-up, my second question, so I don't forget it, is what are the potential of being able to leverage infrastructure dollars for some of these projects and stack them with some of our other capital improvement projects that we have for the boulevard and other areas?
Yeah, well, great question. With respect to the first question about Vision Zero, of course, the council has now adopted that plan. So
will we share information with SCTA and how will that work? Because how are we kind of coalesce or stack the mission there?
Yeah,
Well, each of those, because Vision Zero is pretty high level, but this is
Right.
actually literally on the ground to implement what the vision is. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think part of the goal of one of the reasons why we brought it to council for adoption was at the request of SCTA, and so that they could in turn, I think, use it as a tool to seek funding for countywide initiatives that
Right,
increase.
other cities might want to do, I would imagine they have their problem intersections as well.
Right. So I think this next step of actually doing plans and having something that's, as they would really use the term shovel ready,
Right.
might enable us to be, submit some kind of funding application depending on, the particulars of the grant application. So I think having adopted Vision Zero plan, now we have an engineering study that supports improvements. It'll be something that we can seek additional, grant funding for, and the additional improvements for funding with community development block grant funds.
Right.
Because of the connection to ADA improving.
And our safe routes to school projects. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, one, we gotta get the study done. Ideally, this would be something we would get grant funded, but the relatively small scope here, 22,000, we probably would have spent quite a bit of that just trying to write a grant application. So, the bulk of the potential grant opportunities is actually doing the work. So I think there's a direct connection.
Well, and great job bringing that in. That was you having the radar up and bringing those consultants into this. So
Yeah, I think it'll be valuable.
It's a step ahead. So that have that shovel ready projects. We can get the grant funding when it comes along, and it's
Right. And I look at this as, this was this was an existing intersection where we, know we've had some concerns around pedestrian safety. But likewise, the area where we did the complete street safety assessment was identified as a concern because of the, new affordable housing coming in, new, planning processes for the Great Railroad Trail, Crocker Street Bridge, concerns around speeding. So council did fund, in budget additional $100,000 to initiate the a concept plan for Ospey Road. So that likewise could,
Yeah,
there's the study part of it, but then there's the real work of getting the improvements. And to me, that's where there'll be opportunity for us to apply for the grant. So hopefully there'll be some good programs for us. There's a lot of grants up there.
we know,
Identify.
we know a good planner, who just worked for a Great Road Trail. So, yeah, so hopefully we'll work closely with that agency, especially on that one area. It's a good job, good job bringing that to the city and stacking benefits, which is what we have to do.
Hopefully, once we get the complete street safety assessment, we can kickstart or initiate the plannings for a concept design or concept plan for Ospey Road, and then keep building on that.
What do you think the timeframe is right now?
I'm not sure.
I'm not going to get into it.
For the plan, or
Yeah, to get.
we didn't pay anything for it, so it's.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, it's just a matter, I think it's in UC Berkeley camp, and they were doing quite a few of them, so it's probably in a queue, just waiting for them to kind of give it their final review and check off. I would expect that we might have it soon.
And that's kind of happened. I remember kind of what happened with the ULI analysis as well. But the advantage is we sort of kind of knew what the date was because it was presented at their conference. So if UC Berkeley is going to be presenting it, that's probably what the date is. Or it's probably what the drop dead is. So I guess we'll see.
My sense too is that they are going to include a comprehensive set of, they didn't want to call them recommendations, but suggestions in terms of other studies, other things that they feel might be valuable for us to consider as part of a complete program.
Sure. Is part of the deal to come and give a presentation of the final report, or?
I don't know. I'll have to I'll follow up and ask them. I think that was the intent. But
I certainly don't speak for the entire council, but my inclination is to think that there would be a strong interest in giving a good presentation of what it means and what it would look like. And then of course, it's part of what you're working on to get us to then adopt that complete streets program. So I just think it would be great to get a presentation. If that's part of the deal, let's get that presentation from the people who did it, even if it's that's or who didn't do any of the legwork, that's fine. Or whatever, whatever it is that is part of the deal, I think there would be strong interest in that. So.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that the value of the work really is identified with the final report, and why we may want to invest in additional work, looking at other jurisdictions and municipalities that have been successful in getting grant funding. They seem to be following their complete streets.
Yeah.
And so
I'm just curious, is that going to be, is it an actual box or is it an applied box on some of that grant funding? It's not a maybe, the street plan is part of it, yes. If it is, it's more and more. Do you think it's getting to that point?
that's my sense.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I think here too. So, or that was my impression, just,
Yeah,
and let's
the first box.
exactly the first box. Yeah. Okay, this is part of your complete street plan. And then that,
Right. And not only is it part of it, are you implementing?
yeah. Okay, great. Well, that's what answers my questions. Any questions from the public? Seeing none online, we will thank you for the exhaustive presentation. I know you don't have dates but it's gelling, it's coming together, so. I think that we should keep that on current items, and if there are any other dates.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then I'm seeing housing element update. I think that's.
Yeah, I can give you some. We've been meeting weekly with our consultant. They've gotten quite a good survey response. They've been pretty active about going out and getting people to participate in the survey and meeting key stakeholders. At this point, it's looking like we probably won't have to engage in any rezoning to meet our arena. I'm not 100%, but it's looking pretty good for that. So that's going to be less work for us after adoption of the housing element. And they told us that they're about 95% of the draft done with the draft, the background report, which is part of what's needed to submit to HCD. I don't know if the council needs to go through that. It's pretty exhaustive. And then actually the actual draft of the housing element. Hopefully, it's not going to be done by the end of the year, only because it has to go to HCD. They have up to 60 days to review, although they've been turning around quicker, right, from what I hear. So, yeah, it's moving forward. We're looking forward to seeing our technical background report and draft housing element in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. And then, through planning commission, council, probably another workshop or at least presentation on what's in there, and yeah, get her done.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in good shape.
Yeah.
Any comments from the public? Yes. All right, well then we will move on to countywide active transportation plan plus local bicycle pedestrian master plan update. And I'm just going to go ahead and ask a question right off the bat, so that you can kind of incorporate it into your summary. I just think it's beneficial to say, look again, like, okay, how does this fit into with your Vision Zero plan? How does this fit into our complete streets plan? And what are the priorities that we might need to set? Or, is SCTA going to do most of the heavy lifting on this?
Right. So I think this is very similar in terms of the geographic scope. It's a countywide plan that would entail updating all the respective cities' bicycle and pedestrian master plans. And I think that obviously ties in and to Vision Zero, and that helps inform the planning process where there are intersections that identify where there might be accidents or there's an accident history that can be better addressed through improvements to either pedestrian facilities or bicycle facilities. So I think, but it's that countywide effort to develop the regional planning documents that help guide each of our respective cities. So I think there's a relationship in terms of the planning process and the tying in connection with other regional plans, because we're dealing with transportation issues that aren't always city specific. And so, in this case, it'd be tying in countywide improvements to the bicycle plan or modifications to what our local improvements are. So I think, all these seemingly separate efforts all kind of relate and inform each other. And likewise, the county has obtained a grant to update the master plan. And I guess it was my understanding our initial response from the previous staff was we're fine, it's not updated, but they kind of re-circled back with us. And I said, absolutely, we want to participate in updating it. I haven't drilled down to what specific updates, we might be looking at. There's an opportunity to do that with the planning commission, for example, and council. And in particular, this is a grant funded effort through SCPA. So it makes a lot more sense for us to participate in an effort that's going to be funded by grant funds and managed by an entity that will take a lot of more significant staff time, administrative the grant and all of that. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Our bike and master plan is slowly getting outdated. It's 2009. So it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Clover Springs, I will, go for Bill Creek and I see everybody leaving their house, not in their cars, they're on an electric bike. It's like in 2009, it's like those were a little old, that's interesting. Or cargo bikes, were like, those are- it's like.
Are the scooters now? I mean,
Or
scooter.
Exactly. I mean, actually, I saw them at the fair where I was like, that's cool. Like, they look like a cargo tricycle. Make my run to down or whatever. But anyway, yeah, it's really, the technology has just changed so much. I guess, one of my concerns, or I think a couple of my concerns were this is first of all, it's like, would this facilitate a town hall so that residents can participate and say what they're looking for in the bike plan? Do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's-
Like
I
that?
think that's a good ask of SCTA is to what extent they're going to seek additional or conduct additional public outreach. And if we're part of that plan, including, opportunity for a workshop for our residents to weigh in on and have public input on the plan.
And I think that part of the concern that, or some of the questions that I have that, if they were gonna ask me at a, is, one is that, how does our street plan? Accidents are one way to measure what's wrong, but also it's like, how many people don't ride because they're discouraged if the conditions just aren't great. There are always gonna be the crazy people who ride no matter what. I mean, they're hardcore cyclists and they're gonna ride. But, what are the conditions that exist? Like the Hillsburg Avenue intersection, what are the, that prevent people from really wanting to, ride across the boulevard or to make a left-hand turn off of, I'll tell you, I would never, if I could avoid it, I never turn left onto Hillsburg Avenue to get onto Cloverdale Boulevard. I go up First Street, I go to Foot Street, I go to either Foothill, but I go over to. Yeah, there you go. So I go over to First Street because then that's where I'm coming from. So I'd rather take that route because I just have a sense of how wide that intersection is, and I may be completely clear, but if somebody's speeding or they don't see me, then it's a problem. So I guess it's like the question is too. It's like, well, how much riding isn't done because of the conditions? And also, I know that from getting the kind of that initial vision zero briefing, we usually don't have a lot of context here. That doesn't mean that we don't have conditions that make people not want to ride, so that we don't have as many accidents. I guess that would be my feedback if we had a.
Well, yeah, I think that would be valuable. And I mean, one of the surveys that that UC Berkeley asked me to undertake asked a lot of questions about bicycle specific facilities, whether we have those in our community, and almost universally the answer was no.
Do you know that we have the repair thing at the library now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We have a repair station at the library.
I think to me, what it entailed is, or what it's reflective of is that there's been a lot of improvements in the types of facilities that support improving the safe movement of bicyclists.
Yeah. The bikeability.
And green bike lanes is one of those that's more clearly identified travel lane, but there's a whole host of other improvements that some of which are fairly new to me, and some of the bicycles or enjoy bicycling.
Whenever I travel on my car, if I'm in Sacramento or if I'm oh wow. It's the bicycle amenities.
Yeah.
Know about.
Exactly. So I mean, it kind of gets to your question is there's a lot of these facilities that or improvements that we haven't even identified that we brought to the community and said, well, would you support this? Would it enable you, or would it encourage you, or would you be more willing to ride the bike if we had this? That would be.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess just to follow up to that is destination cyclists, and so what's stopping people who aren't maybe in the elite category from writing who would. Yeah, you know, even like, well, and the thing that I find out about a lot of my friends is like, if there's a couple and only one of them rides, then they're, and, you know, the other one will be like, well, I'm just not into riding the 30-mile or whatever, but I would ride, you know, but if I can do a 10-mile ride, then I'm in, and if it feels safe, then I'm in, but otherwise, I'm driving everywhere. And that's kind of the answer, is that if, you know, it's like, well, how do you lower the barrier to everyday people? If we don't want the micro wearing 5,000. Like, no, I can adjust up my $5,000 bike, because it's like, there are a lot more. So yeah, so that's kind of.
That's
you
it.
know, That's the entry level, exactly, that's where you're just getting started, it's the gateway drug. So that's kind of my feedback on that, and that's just what I would want us to see a request from.
Yeah, I mean, it says, that they're planning to start fall or winter of 2022. And the scope includes the update of several jurisdictional level plans that are due for review.
Moving on that, okay, that's kind of my feedback, just based on the title. Are there any questions from the public or any comments? Anything else for us on this? This is kind of, probably should go ahead and stay on current items, so that it's updated, is that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We'll continue to track, and as I indicated, shared with Dana Turi, our senior transportation planner at CTA, that we definitely want to participate. So
Absolutely.
hopefully they're successful in including us in part of this process. So
Great. Well, and it'll kind of be fun to see the First Street pedestrian bicycle bridge kind of become part of that system up here, so.
yeah, and just what you mentioned that I think enough is tied to this is that we've been provided 65% design level drawings by the county and the county public works director. We have reviewed those the plans and have provided comments back to the county department of public works, the works director, and so a lot of them have to deal with our comments are just reflective of our interests in terms of how the bridge is going to be land and intertie with the access road to River Park.
And our water treatment plant.
And our water treatment plant. So that's our main focus. We're not commenting a lot on the design of the bridge itself, but how is it going to tie in and relate to cities? So it's one of those things very kind of striping improvements and or other amenities that may be necessary to make sure it's safe as bicyclists come across and re-enter the roadway.
And it's tugging on the string because, like, yeah, if that ends up being the route for the Great Redwood Trails through the River Park, there's going to be a pretty significant pedestrian component to it as well.
Right.
So it's like all that I kind of work together.
Exactly.
And in our truck seems will make a left-hand turn. So it all still works together. Better to plan it ahead of time. So oops.
But there's more details on the plans. They didn't have really a striking plan, and that'll be a big part of it. At least to identify how it's ultimately tying into the system. Quite true.
Great work.
Make progress on that.
Yeah.
Very awesome. It's all that email.
It's like,
Whoa.
hurry up and wait.
Here it
Like,
comes.
bam. Yeah.
It's doing.
Oh, a great local advocate. It's
Yeah, well, I, any other comment on P before we leave it? We'll move on to P. I have no idea where this legislation currently is, but.
Well, I looked it up, maybe you guys know what this means, but it said status crossed over.
Oh, it's crossed over to the next house.
Yeah, it's-
So, yeah, it's in the assembly. So it's left the house. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. We'll stay
you
tuned.
know, I guess it's interesting because we were just talking about the fact that we're already moving forward with this and we have hopefully money and grant money to supply this. And I know that the league is proposing this as.
There.
Yeah, and but I'm kind of like, but we have to do this anyway. because again, the site plans are like 2009.
So it's require a general plan to require, identify and prioritize safety improvements within 15 years that can address serious and traffic closures. So
Yeah, we're kind of already doing it anyway. I mean, Sonoma County's adopted Vision Zero, we're updating our bike plan, so I'm not complaining to jump into this argument because I don't think he was fighting this year. I think we're doing this year.
well, I mean, you said we don't really have a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Injury and accidents, so we probably, if they made it, if this came down, we probably make it accomplish it fairly easily.
Yeah. I'm kind of just inclined to engage on it. I think that we're already doing the work.
Makes sense to me. I think the opposition is really being driven by large cities. That's what I garner.
Well, and this is such an essential part, it's part of the county's economic development plan is bicycles and bicycle tourism and support for cities doing bike plans. And so, yeah, so we're already going in this direction, so. All right, so I don't need to be it.
And Chair, if it's okay with you, then we'll remove this item.
I would just remove this item.
Okay.
Any comment from the public? Let's move on to item F. Clean air vehicle and equipment policy. I'm getting short to spit email exchange about this, and short discussion, so.
Well, I think there's interest in the air district continues to offer incentive, or at least advise that there are incentives for certain equipment, and I think the intent was to continue to monitor whether we should develop a policy that requires us to consider alternative fuel vehicles as part of our procurement process. I think that's it.
I think we'd be the last city in Sonoma County to get either a Prius or a Bolt. Yeah, when I was in Sacramento, there were just like there were Bolts everywhere, and they were all city of parking enforcement. And, I mean, obviously they have a huge fleet. We don't have a huge fleet, but I think it just because we're going to come to the point where we're always replacing vehicles. So I think that we should develop something where we can take it. And then also, I think you mentioned too, some of the, some of the landscaping equipment as well. That seems to just be getting better and better, but obviously you don't want to adopt it until it's actually, usable. And you want to do it on a replacement basis once the technology is actually better than what you would get otherwise.
Right, and I mean, first I can say we don't have a policy on the books. With that said, whenever we are considering purchasing gas powered equipment or new vehicles, we certainly take a look at feasibility and opportunity for alternative fuel vehicles. So, kind of right now, it's really looking at our fleet. So with our police vehicles, do we move to electric? And that's something I think requires more evaluation. When we did a little bit of research, I think it was customer approved access to look at, whether a Tesla, for example, is feasible. And we looked at a case study that was done in the Bay Area.
It would be Fremont. I sat next to the mayor of Fremont last week, and she, I mean, it's a company, it's a company town.
Right.
So I mean, they were early adopters, but yeah, she I go my Tesla, and and she was talking about where she was charging and stuff like that, and we were comparing notes. So yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of there was a couple different issues. One is police vehicles are somewhat unique because of their electronic systems that they
they have that need to be.
Oh, yeah, you have to be able to install, you have to be able to install the custom equipment that, that gets installed in the police vehicle. Yeah,
Right,
yeah, it has to be compatible, so.
To
And I think Ford is actually moving.
looking that, yeah, and that'll be, because,
And
right
that's
now,
probably realistic.
most police vehicles that we spec are actually built by the manufacturer for that specific purpose.
Right.
Whether it's a Dodge Charger, a Ford, or some other vehicle, they specify it and they include the vehicle, so they've included certain components, aspects to it that are intended to reflect the operational characteristics. So, EVs, I don't think aren't quite there yet.
They're not quite there yet, but I think we just have to be ready, because, I mean, the other public safety component to this, the fact that, I mean, it's like, at least if you're talking about the F-150, like, for instance, or the Guard, pickup.
Sure.
It also has the ability to be, it is a mobile battery unit.
Right.
And so there's that advantage to it as well, is that, you can power stuff in the yard, you can power stuff in the park, you can power stuff in the fairgrounds, and it would have a dual purpose. To
Absolutely.
provide, backup power.
And I think, we're currently in the 2-year budget, we have 2 vehicles proposed, so we could look at the
Well,
opportunities.
we can also, like, we could say we want one, and the question, would we be able to get one, because they're so dear right now. I mean,
Right,
so-
right.
But I just want to be prepared so that maybe we've done some of the analysis, to find some, applicable uses, as to why we might want to invest more in the future.
What kind of the business case for.
Right.
And I mean, the other thing that we've talked about is the need to develop our EV infrastructure.
Right.
And that, ideally you would have that EV infrastructure kind of in place so that once you buy an EV vehicle, you're not scrambling. Not that you have to, it's not that hard, but
Yeah,
ideally you have it in place and ready to go to.
it's more important on a non-residential basis. Yeah, absolutely,
But with that, I think during the program, we were looking at EV chargers in courtyard, so that would give us. We'd be more prepared to accept
One out here too.
Yeah, it would be great if we
We're
could.
going to be using some power out there.
And then on equipment, we we do use quite a bit of gas power, especially weed eaters. And I already talked to Hector Galvan about proceeding with purchase of an electric weed eater. Partly one is and to use it to determine if it's going to meet our needs.
Right.
And he seems to think it will, just based on his, but it actually did, it's file and field test it and see if it's gonna work, and works well, then we'll fully adapt that as our equipment requirement. And it's getting better too.
The residents will love it, because, when I walked in, yeah, I mean, it's just, they are disruptive, and they can.
Electric quieter.
A lot quieter, so.
So we have plans,
Now,
we're gonna buy one.
yeah,
Well, it's a couple things that we talked about, Hector. Now, of course, he's an employee who is not shy to pick up heavy equipment. But it's lighter, so.
I guess it's like, I guess a solid battery is lighter than liquid gasoline.
Well, and
Yeah.
all in the motor.
Yeah. the motor is just-
And so, it's from that perspective, it's in a long day, it's easier on the employee. We're also not having to handle and transport gas,
Yeah.
fuel. We just change that with batteries. So those are kind of 2 employee benefits. Well, and on top of that, the air quality component. So they're
Well, it's one thing to have to walk past the blowers when they're going, and then it's another, like, you're gonna have to use it for, however, or whatever part of your day, 4 hours.
in the way you're breathing the fumes.
You're breathing the fumes.
The exhaust. So there's a lot of positive employee and environmental benefits.
You're hearing.
So our goal is to start integrating those into our equipment, supply. We're gonna have on the council agenda next week, purchase of a mini excavator, for our water department. We did, research whether that was available as an alternative.
They're
fuel,
almost there.
And that one wasn't, so.
They're almost there. That I know that I saw a video on there's a company in England that's developing them, and it's just they're just right on the edge, probably 5 years.
So that one was, I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing because it wasn't.
Like a bobcat, like a
Yeah,
little.
like a robot. And it was great. They have more torque and they're more efficient, and they use, they're less polluting. I mean, on and on. Yeah, but I mean, and actually to do the job, an electric motor has more torque than gasoline, and so for things like excavators and forklifts, they're so much more efficient and they last longer. So they're a better investment. So yeah,
Usually there's a big weight on the back of those.
yeah,
With the battery is the weight.
the battery is the way. Yeah, just like cars. Anyway, okay, that's a good update. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, so I'd say let's just move forward and, as we can. It's not, obviously, it's not a hot priority but if we can just put it on the work list as we can get it done as we can, bring it back. Any changes, I would assume that some tweaks could probably be made in purchasing policy or.
Do you know of any city that has one that you like, or?
Oh, house, I don't know. Well, what I do know is that I can't walk down you can't walk past the Ukiah City Hall without seeing like a fleet of electric cars. I wonder if Healdsburg has a policy because they have their own municipal power company, so it's kind of an advantage for them. They might be ahead of the game on that. So if you want to talk to Jeff or Larry.
Well, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, we just don't have the fleet.
Yeah.
Like a lot of other cities.
I would imagine, I wonder if Santa Rosa is already on electric, guard equipment.
Be curious to see how Hector likes the one that we're gonna get. And then we were just thinking he could have an extra battery on the truck. So
Exactly.
That's gonna give you a full day's work.
That's I think that's what you do. And of course, the model that, I can't remember which show we were at, but it was, the electric forward saying, okay, you got your tool, because it comes with it is a generator. It is a generator. You just plug your tools into it. You can be charging your tools while you're driving to the next job, so, I mean, that's an expensive toy, but at the same time, it's like, it's more flexible than a regular truck in that, in an emergency use. For public safety.
It's really cool. I mean, trucks are so expensive anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're already there.
That
Yeah,
much
it's
more
already
than really.
there. And then like you add the component where it's like, well, it's a portable generator. It's a portable emergency backup. So, it would be great to get there. Okay, so that was the clean air vehicle policy. Any comments? No, nothing. Moving on to item G. Harvest Fair.
Yeah, Kiwanis has taken out a special event permit for the plaza for a one-day event. I think they partner with Cortland's Pumpkin Patch.
Yeah.
And traditionally, the city has not had a role in the event. They've been a private nonprofit organization that does it. I think the task was wasn't quite sure if we wanted to make it a city event or is it just coordinating with the event sponsors?
I was not interested in dividing and conquer. I certainly do not need another event, but when I was talking with some of the folks who are going to be involved, just kind of in passing, there was an interest in, it might be a good idea for us to get some, especially since it's kind of just right after back to school. It's a great chance to get into contact with kids and parents and families. It'd be a great opportunity to do either the compost buckets or do the silicone straws from zero waste. It'd just be a great opportunity because, and also I know we have everybody has a bunch of tchotchkes and been sitting around because there haven't been any events. So it just might be a good chance for either the city or some of the agencies to do some outreach with, folks are just gonna be coming and going to that all day. That's all that was. I'm interested in straws and buckets, nothing,
And
I don't want
hopefully,
to take anything over.
right, well, and I'm hoping, we through the grant program that was spearheaded by Zero Waste, we are expecting a delivery of countertop compost bins, I think, in September. So,
Might be good timing.
yeah, it could be very good timing and certainly discuss the opportunity with Zero Waste staff to see and the event proponents, whether we could accommodate a booth, maybe, if it's first just the city booth, do it in conjunction with one of our partners.
Yeah.
Because I think we're also gonna try to this fall, coupled with the buckets, the countertop buckets is have a compost event where we provide free compost for the community to use.
Right.
So there could be opportunity to promote that as well. So
Okay.
we can reach out and.
Well, and I think it's a great opportunity to kind of, work with some of our partners because I think people are still interested in doing outdoor events when possible and getting out and addressing some of these kind of pent-up demand issues with the public. So with residents, I just thought it'd be a great opportunity to work together, but certainly it looks like not looking to volunteer people, not looking to take anything over, just. I just want to give away straws.
We'll put you down from 8 to 5.
Exactly, put me down for 8 to 5. Exactly. No, that was it. And, anything else on that?
No, we'll reach out and, we're also, not specific to this event, but we're coordinating the restroom project. So we're trying to coordinate.
That would be so great if that could get done.
Well, we don't think it'll, because it's so close between when FNL and this event begins, and then now we've got additional interest in having La Familia Sana wants to do an event. So we're either gonna have to say, well, for a period of time, just no events, or try to schedule around.
Probably, let's hope it rains, but maybe during rainy season.
Yeah.
Well, I did just get an update today from the restroom company. He said now they're saying maybe November.
Okay.
Oh,
It was mid-October, so there's 2 pieces we have.
It'll be ready for the turkey trot.
Well, we have to put the site work in.
And it's for the contract.
Well, that allows us to accommodate the La Familia Sana event, since I think it's the first week in November. So we were kind of trying to figure out how we just logistically get all the work done and fit it in between proposed events in the way.
And not being attracted to expense.
Right.
Yeah. Any comments from the
Hello.
this one? Seeing none? What does that put us? Like, next page, H, potential property acquisition. Lease of properties for appropriate for community events. There has been some interest in maybe revitalizing the farmers market, and specifically if there might be any possibility to lease that property, maybe acquire or maybe lease the property adjacent to Plank. And I just was wondering if there was any progress on that.
Nina spoke to a guy, Dennis Dunn, I don't know if you know him, apparently he's a expert farmer's market, and he's interested in leasing the parking lot behind the theater.
That's what we talked about is that, we own the parking lot behind the thing, what about a Sunday?
Yeah, I left a couple messages for him, so
That's great. See, they're in demand,
we could do that real easily through a simple permit and,
okay.
yeah.
But is there any, have there been any overtures to the clerks and because I know that there was people liked the live music there on Sundays and that kind of just became too much, and thought it would be if they would like any tax relief on that parcel or anything.
Yeah,
It's
I-
probably good, right?
We haven't reached out to them. We certainly can. You know, before it was all coordinated with, and then I think through, primarily Plain Coffee and so there's kind of there's two components to it. One is the property itself, and then there's secondarily is the formal establishment of the market. So we have to start with it's the interest is the city trying to lease it from them, and working that out from a lease agreement, which real property negotiation. So we bring that
Sure.
to council. If you'd like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and discussion amongst folks who have been vendors at farmers market, and a couple of other people, I took their temperature. I was like, hey, would there be any interest in, you know, if it were available either for lease or for sale, would you be interested, would you help do fundraising and acquire it for the city? And, you know, and of course, you know, people always immediately say, oh, yes, I'd be happy to work with H5. And then they're, you know, so I mean, but the response was positive that people would be willing to do fundraising and, you know, friends of Cloverdale Farmers Market or some entity like that might be, there would be some interest in doing fundraising to help with that, because there's a pretty strong interest in that property. Everybody it's just the gathering.
What's your thoughts on that versus the parking lot behind the theater?
You know, I just like I felt about the dog park at Smart, is that's turnkey. The parking lot, doing a farmer's market with that, in that parking lot would be turnkey. That could be up and running. This might be a longer negotiation, so why not do 2 tracks? You know, that's my.
Touch
And
base
it
with
may,
the folks and
it may not be something that they're all interested in, and then we, you know, obviously make the overture and then drop it, but there was interest amongst folks in the community who said that they would be willing to do some private fundraising if that's what needed to happen. And I was kind of like, really, you're gonna volunteer for that? And yeah, okay, I'll ask. That's all I can do. That's all I can do, so.
So I mean, there's you know, it's part of the larger parcel that includes the residential. So maybe a lease would be,
It might be more doable.
yeah. So we'd have to full council
Yeah.
about whether we want
Or if this guy calls me back, I can report back, I mean, sooner than our next meeting.
Yeah.
Just
Well, I think the direction is to do dual,
Yeah.
so we have to
Yeah,
go to council and close session and ask about, have authorization to do real property negotiation.
and I don't think there's really any other way to approach that.
do you know what the arrangement was in the past? They just informally, well,
Yeah, it was just informal. That's what I understand too. Yeah. But yeah, there's strong interest.
Maybe
in
they
that.
lease it to us for now.
Exactly, or, you know, something that would relieve them of the liability of the. So, okay, I'll leave that in your hands, and nothing, any comments from the public?
No, interesting discussion here.
All right, and then, let's see, where are we? That, last item under this number, new pollution prevention grant opportunity under infrastructure law.
Yeah, so that was, I think there's an email communication that came out from the California Water Quality Monitoring Council about their EPA seeking input on the new pollution prevention grant, but I didn't see that they actually released the grant and the guidelines yet. They're kind of, it sounds like they're
This is watch this space.
Right.
Okay, well then let's just monitor that and see if it's appropriate for us, but, yeah. See, okay, moving on. Well, I'll just, you know, if there's new news, I think we'll get it at the next meeting. Questions or comments about item J? Okay. Moving on to standing items, number 6. A discussion of gas station moratorium resolution model, and this is something that's coming through our CPA, so I don't know what the status is here. There.
yeah, we have not, the direction is to bring that to planning commission. Yeah, I can do that. Start a discussion there and see where they're at. think that probably goes into zoning. Maybe it doesn't, but. maybe
Yeah,
that's-
I-
That might be one way to go. just-
Toddy's adopted it. I think Windsor County, it could be wrong. Petaluma made some tweaks and changes. And again, it's not a ban, it's a moratorium on new stations. And I know RCPA has, they've been involved in that, so I would just go to them, and if they need to do a presentation, that would be great.
Okay.
Any comments or questions on this item?
I can't see any reason that anybody would want to put another in town.
Yeah,
Really,
well, we actually have an interest.
really,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was
Another?
pretty,
in addition to.
yeah, it was pretty weird. It was on virgin land. It was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So, yeah, and interestingly enough, what some of the other council members told us at RCPA was that the family-owned gas stations were really interested in this because they're seeing so many HELOC companies come in and kind of try to cut into their business. They actually want this because, I don't know, I have a Volt, so I'm the last person to ask, but I mean, you know, when we still had the I3, we filled up a runner because we had a company, you know, thing, but I don't remember anybody, when's the last time you stood in line for gas? Cloverdale, or it wasn't the day after the PSPS,
Never.
you know, so yeah, I think it might be timely because we're already talking about converting the fleet, it's just gonna be it's just a matter of time, so.
And strangely, it seems that, people don't chase price necessarily, they go to where
They go where they
they
are,
want to go, where
Yeah.
they already are going.
yeah, that's exactly.
They've
They're
been
not
going
cheap.
there for years.
Yeah, I've always, I like that right. Not like, I left on the boulevard, go to the station that they like, so, yeah, but I think it's really because I think that the local benefit economically is that the small gas stations don't want to see more competition from, from card lock people, so, okay, we can move that forward and let, you know.
So can
let
we
our-
research whether it has to go to planning commission first or just otherwise direct to council?
You guys figure it out.
This is the moratorium. I mean,
It's a
it may be
moratorium.
council.
Yeah,
Tweak the zone.
Yeah.
yeah.
It should coordinate the
And
both.
see what the other cities did,
Yeah.
if they send it to their, I have no idea. So, okay, great, any other comments on this one? No, okay, we'll see, item B, update on 6 acres, and honestly, I sat down to read that email that she sent out on 6 acres like 3 times, and 3 times I got phone calls, so. You're gonna
Well,
have to
yeah,
tell
just-
me.
Yeah, just a quick update. So we received notification today from the State Water Board that they have executed a work plan, which includes funding component to address the proposed annexation of 6 acres water company to the city of Cloverdale. They have a separate agreement with the project manager that would oversee preparation of the engineering reports.
And is that the gentleman we met in that, one of those last meetings before? Locked in, I can't remember.
I don't know if council's been formally introduced to, the person, her name is Marlene Demery. She's a professional engineer. She's worked for a number of cities,
No,
but
she was the attorney that they had hired, so no. I
Oh, right,
know,
yeah.
in the subcommittee meeting, yeah. just
But-
before we-
right, and so the work plan really is with UC Davis School of Law.
And then this
to-
is the engineer who's gonna be the project.
Right. So there's that piece, and it's good news. I mean, it's amazing how long it takes for the state to get through its approval process. But we have received a separate request to annex the South Cloverdale Water Company and complete the annexation agreement that includes them. My response back to the parties that the state has retained to help with that was that the council has not reviewed annexation of the South Cloverdale Mutual Water Company.
Right.
It's a much larger area. It's got other issues. And I guess furthermore, the council had a pretty robust discussion about 6 acres, what their concerns were, and how we were going to address them, which drove the need to for the state to fund the infrastructure study to support the annexation of 6 acres. And presumably council would want to do something similar with South Cloverdale.
And actually, I did not have a chance to send it to you. Did you see the NLC article about how small communities are forced to shoulder the burden of water infrastructure?
Right.
Did you, I don't know,
I think I saw that one.
the headlines were just of it all. But
Yeah. And understandably, there's concerns about the infrastructure and water quality. No one questions that issue. It's more when you're considering annexation, how do we fund the necessary infrastructure improvements that are going to be critical to not burdening our existing ratepayers. So what I'm working on, at least with South Cloverdale, is setting up an initial meeting. There's some really strong project proponents for South Cloverdale, with the mayor and vice mayor as a starting point, just the conversation. Hopefully, it's from the council have a conversation. So whether these two coalesce and become one big annexation, I'm not sure. As of right now, 6 acres seems to have a lot of the pieces in place in terms of the funding, in terms of the work that's been done
for years.
That they'll be able to move forward.
Yeah.
And so, I think they can do that. I think they're on a path to be able to accomplish that, where South Cloverdale is playing catch up, and I think there's still some logistical issues to work out to ensure that, again, they've got, just like South 6 acres, we want to make sure that there's funding in place to support improving the water system, or the water infrastructure and the wastewater infrastructure to support those areas. So,
And then, well, then we also need funding to update our capital program to, basically restudy everything that we just finished studying.
right.
See how, it's not just the impact of the ratepayers and the impact on the system. It's also the impact on all the planning the city has done heretofore.
Right.
And that's not free.
No, it's not. And
Not great.
Yeah, it's an update to our CFP. But what's also unique about South Cloverdale Water Company is that they're, unlike 6 acres, their boundaries overlap with the city.
Yeah.
So there are properties within the city that receive their water from South Cloverdale Water Company. Well, upon annexation, so also we have to move those properties onto our system.
Right.
So those are things that just have to be done with some evaluation, consideration, thought. It's not a matter of just saying, well, now you're in the city connect, because it's going to have demands and there's going to be improvements that are required. So there's some important policy issues that need to be discussed that we haven't really vetted yet.
Right.
They're like, what are we going to council for annexation?
So I imagine that you will make the judgment as to when this gets moved from standing items to current items for discussion.
Yeah.
Or it might just get moved straight to.
I mean, this has kind of been,
Yeah.
we've been doing updates on both the public works as well as the planning and sustainability subcommittee. Because they're kind of a lot of overlap here.
We have gone through the 6 acres, so hopefully this one will go smoother with the pre-annexation agreement, because that was tough.
That was kind of the part.
Yeah, well, it's, now we have a model, and hopefully South Cloverdale's looked at that and they're okay with
We're
it.
not.
We're gonna change all this, we got our own special line right here.
Yeah, and like I said, it's unique in the sense that there are properties, they're in the city,
Yeah.
so they're zoned.
That's true.
But I'm assuming it's R3, that it's.
A lot of it is
Or whatever the other.
R2.
Some of it's R2. Oh,
So,
interesting.
One of the good things is IROC,
Yeah,
so we'll get more.
ka-ching.
Yeah.
Sales tax.
So that's,
more to come on that. It's,
More to come.
IROC wants to get into, they came in and asked
Can you
about
imagine
moving
if
in
they-
advance of of this.
They would probably like to have services as well, I would imagine, so that they
They
can
have-
expand.
Visions of expansion too.
Well, and then they're in a great spot for it, because they're,
Yeah, I think it's pre-zoned industrial.
pre-zoned. There you go. All right, any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to stock park location. Woo-hoo. What do we have? Is there any movement with Smart? Have we moved
Yeah.
moved along?
I'll let David start. I mean,
Well, we have a draft license agreement that's being reviewed.
You rock.
By our city attorney, and one of the things they asked from us was, they want a exhibit that identifies, not just the boundary of the
Yeah.
property, but the proposed improvements, so, Kevin's actually working with, a local engineering firm on a scope to develop an exhibit. And we're, there's one that's kind of the exhibit piece, we get the agreement done, but then we're also thinking, do we engage with services of someone who's going to do something that's more, maybe less engineering and more, tells a story with a picture, graphic that we can use for either grant applications or even something for outreach with the community. Because, engineering exhibits one thing, but it's something that it's maybe a little bit more artful that really kind of tells a story that for fundraising, maybe with the community.
One of the, I know that you and I have talked about this, but this is like, it seems like years ago because so much has happened, but Cloverdale is one of the few communities in Sonoma County that doesn't have like a community foundation, a local foundation where you can do fundraising for dog park,
Right.
fundraising for, maybe small property leasing or, things like that. And it just would be, obviously that's not something that we can spearhead, but it's certainly something that we can ask for because, that would be the appropriate way to do the outreach.
Yeah.
Is through a local foundation. That would be the, fiscal sponsor.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so thanks for moving forward. The key will be getting back any comments we have on the license agreement. And
Unless you wanted to remember, we went to. So.
well,
It's
it's
just like we've already asked so much of our service.
right.
Our service groups who have done, these big park projects, and it's like, it's a lot to ask if we all kind of work together on some of these small projects. And,
yeah, we need to, like David said, Hector, we went out and kind of staked what
Yeah.
kind of, make it, that can be adjusted, but,
did you get Johannes to take a drone shot?
no.
You will do that.
We gotta.
He would love to. You could practically fly from his house from there.
What I think
Might
is,
just be out of range, but yeah.
maybe the scope, we talked about, type of fencing, just trying to put some numbers and.
Be great if we
maybe
could
a
use
pergola
our
or something.
electric weed whacker and use our new chipper.
So you do have a location you're looking at?
Yeah, just
Oh,
south
yeah.
of the train station on
Uh-huh.
Osti. It's bigger than it looks from the street.
Yeah.
It's really wide and long.
It's kind of the
So,
hillside.
Right.
just rough estimates for footage wise, it's just about 12,500 square feet.
Perfect
I think
size.
it's, would you say 50 feet wide?
Well, what Hector put out was 50 by 200.
I think it's smaller than Villa Chanticleer, but that's huge. The Villa Chanticleer one is like, I think that this site is just slightly smaller.
If you go out and look at what he staked off,
Yeah.
it looks big.
It's
You know,
big.
like, this is plenty big and some trees in the ground, maybe a.
Yeah.
a
Do you
shade
have a
tree.
projected, cost,
No.
That's what we're,
10, 20, 30?
Well, that's what we should check right now. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of fencing.
It's easy for me to do now because I'm no longer part of Rotary. I present that to Rotary.
yeah,
They're looking for projects.
they are.
That's why we want to get a nice rendering color. So
Yeah.
people can like start to envision what could be there and.
How much fencing, maybe some costs, and so that, a shade arbor would be nice.
They put their stamp on a lot of things around town.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that would be a real street one.
Oh,
Right. A couple of benches.
There's water there.
Water.
Watering.
Probably the biggest technical issue that we'll have to resolve is just making sure that the access path
Yeah.
is ADA accessible. So
Yeah.
it's just there's a little bit of work there that we have to make sure the grade is right.
If the city acquires the property to do it, then I think the service club could step in and.
Well, we're not acquiring the property, they're letting it.
well,
Licensing.
They're letting
Long-term.
And it may be that, it may be a temporary site, until, it may not be, and I'm assuming that also that they're designating the setback so that. I think the idea is that when the train is here, dog park, we'll probably have another site for another dog park, but this is the.
Well, I
It
think
may be temporary, it may be not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the agreement is drafted currently is to, I mean. It could go either way,
Yeah. It could go,
as
yeah.
long as
Because
it
we have
doesn't
needs on
conflict.
other locations that actually that nailed that be better, but if we end up, I mean, I think it's such a great location for parking because of its,
It's
its
great.
size, it's a great spot, so it may be something that becomes a benefit to Smart Station, because again, it's just like, the problem with that location out there is that it is, at least right now, it's really isolated, and having a use out there benefits the smart and the county who have to maintain that spot, because it just doesn't get enough eyes on the street, but we would have people coming and going. So it could end up being mutually beneficial for them and for us, or it may be that, when we have Baumgartner go in, and if we get the dog, when we have the dog park there, or we find another site that we're maybe, it may be that it's redundant and that Smart might want to repurpose it for something else, and that's their prerogative as well. So, but it's a really good turnkey step.
It's good, I mean, we
Yeah,
kind of dovetailing on the discussion we had earlier about the, Osti Road concept plan. Thinking about that corridor between the train station and First Street as, a real opportunity site for park and people improvements in terms of a pathway. So if for instance, we had an asphalt path that was separated from Oski Road between First Street to the train station. It could be a great walking path. You could then go to the dog park. You might look at what other recreational resources we could maybe look at that area.
well, the river park, I mean, that's the obvious thing. It's like, the river park is the only park on the east side of town. That's it. And so that needs to be tied in with bicycle and pedestrian friendly to the rest of the residents who are going to come there, and residents who are already there.
Right.
There just needs to be a better way to get to the.
But we had a,
But we're going off. But the problem with this is that it's like, it's that string that you can't, you pull on, and you can't not talk about these other things.
right. I mean, we had an interested resident who was asking about whether a skate park can go for it. That's something that bring up when we talk about the concept, whether that's a feasible use of that property.
Because, Smart may have other plans for it, and they're doing us a favor. Let's be honest, they're doing us a big favor by doing this, so. We'll just have to see if it will continue to fit with their usage of the station down the road, so. And any other comments or questions? But hey, you got a hot lead, you got Rotary Club, ask them, so. So, update on the community development planning log, item D.
Yeah, really, probably the biggest thing that we're working on now is the old gas station next to Papa's. They've submitted plans for a use permit to convert that to a really kind of cool beer garden.
Oh, that is fantastic. Is it actually, can you say, is it Papa's or is it a different entity?
It's a different entity.
Okay.
It's a guy he owns some other stuff in town, young guy, who's made a lot of money somehow, and
Don't ask.
he's in high tech, apparently. But there's gonna be a little bit of a lean-to addition on the north side, some new restrooms, there'll be a fence around it, they wanna do live music outside, so we'll kind of conditions of approval. It's like, it's bigger, I mean, it's got more room, I think he's gonna keep the roll-up doors.
and have coffee and
I mean, how many restaurants have you and I,
it's perfect.
yeah, you were been to where it's like, oh, this is no gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one house goes.
That one accounts to is awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. So we're probably gonna get that to the planning commission next month. So it's that's probably the most exciting thing we got going.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Any news on Baumgartner? Okay,
Well, they're
they're
trying to get permits.
City's moving dirt down there.
Yeah, they're working on improvement plans and permits, and they've got a grading permit now, and we're working out a lot of the details, things that are big different than what they kind of envisioned when they boring things like the width of the road and sidewalks and stuff, so it's a little bit of a rocky road, but they are submitting for the second phase, which is townhouses and then the affordable, the single family crickets on that, but so it's moving forward.
Great, thanks for the update. Any questions from them? Okay, moving on to item D, or no, sorry, item E.
That's just ready to bring back to council. It's on our forward calendar.
Oh, okay, great. I won't worry about it then. Any questions or comments on E? All right, seeing none. Item F, Smart Great Redwood Trail update. That's me. So, yesterday I had my, Great Redwood Trail meeting. And, they're just in kind of staff acquisition mode. We don't know that they poached Louisa from the open space and, what's happening now is there's a lot of cleanup on, not necessarily title searches, but who's encroaching on our property where. And now there's the money to actually pursue that. And so I think that we're in pretty good shape here in, Cloverdale working with them because, basically it is smart all the way to the Sonoma Mendocino border. But, you know, I also think that, our interim executive director, Karen Gear, who you met on the tour, she's having come from the Coastal Conservancy, is a great source for planning. It's a great source of information for grants and trail stuff. I see Cloverdale, Smart, and Great River Trail staff working pretty closely. Partnering on grants, partnering on planning, so I'll keep you posted, but it's right now, it's kind of, we're in the mode where it's just a lot of legal cleanup because we finally have, the agency finally has the resources to do it. And then on the Smart end, I do have my Smart meeting, my board meeting tomorrow. So and then we skipped our last meeting, so I don't really have much of an update on that, except that apparently there is a tentative date of Monday, August 29th in the early afternoon for Congressman Huffman to hold a roundtable or it's sort of in its inception phase, but you might want to hold that date, hold the middle of the day on Monday, the 29th. You probably have your staff meeting in the morning, but yeah, the office will probably be reaching out to you, David. And he's, going to talk about the status of, where Smart is. Congressman is working really hard to get us funding for that bridge over Healdsburg. You can't get to Cloverdale until you get to Healdsburg, and you can't get to Healdsburg until you get to Windsor. And of course, that decision from the California Supreme Court regarding the R3 tax issue and whether or not the money can be spent on that extension, it remains, we don't have an estimate until we get that decision. And honestly, Smart staff has a plan B. If they don't come through with being able to use those R3 funds, staff is like, okay, I got plan B ready to go. Where they can go out and get money to get to Windsor. But yeah, again, like you can't get to Cloverdale until you get to Windsor and Healdsburg. And we've got support of the congressman on, the major infrastructure piece. So he just, and at some point, Smart's going to have to go out for the sales tax renewal. And so, I think that the idea is that, you want to take the temperature and find out, what are local folks' needs, what's the level of support, and, what do we need to do to get folks to renew that measure. Personally, for the two Geyserville residents in the room, I would, if there's interest amongst the folks in Geyserville, I would love to see us revise that, the state measure, the state legislation, so that we could have a station in a one rural spot.
Yeah.
On the line. It just makes sense as far as the function of the line, I think. I think that when I'm, being knocking on wood here, when that extension goes into Windsor and people in Healdsburg see how much downtown traffic and how much parking is going to attract at the Smart Station, they're going to become really big supporters of making sure that Cloverdale is, because I think we're going to see a lot of cars and a lot of traffic from not just Cloverdale, but a pretty sizable population in Alexander Valley, Dry Creek, who will drive into Healdsburg to hop on the train. And so, even though we don't have we're told we don't have the population to support it, I think that they're not realizing that we're a vital part of the system to avoid an overload in the downtown stations in Healdsburg and Windsor. And I think that's what, hopefully that can be part of the conversation.
Do they ever consider Ukiah? Because people do drive crazy distances.
Oh, people drive from Lakeport. We have.
Drive to here, get on, and
We already know that they do that. And we already know that there are Cloverdale residents driving to the airport and going to their jobs in San Rafael and Nevada. So, it's in their interest to support the extension of the train here. We may not have the population to drive ridership, but what we do have is we have the facility to accommodate the influx of rural drivers.
what is the reason that it can't stop in incorporated? Can you just mention that?
They put it in the original language to avoid driving growth because of rural road boundaries, to drive growth in rural areas. However, I think that if you just look at a map and you look at what the population areas of Dry Creek and Geyserville and Cloverdale, you look at that and it's like, why is there? And you look at the distance between Cloverdale and Healdsburg, and it just makes a lot of sense.
If you just exempt county planning area or what do they call it, county service area. or something
County
like
service
that.
area, sounds exactly what it is. But of course, the folks in Geyserville, I've talked to a couple of people, especially, at the chamber and a couple other residents, and they're like, of course I want it. So, but that's not exactly a scientific,
Why not?
conclusion. So
It's your town.
if the congressman, and I think, Eddie Cummins, the executive director of Smart will be on that roundtable, perhaps our city manager or something like that. If they can kind of hear that, then that would, that would be better. So I'll keep you posted, and you'll probably be getting notice about that at some point. Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, seeing that, we'll move on to things that I still don't understand exactly what they are. Information memos or updates.
No.
You've been pretty informative up until now, so. Future agenda items, I don't really have one right now. They kind of tend to come up. Any items from the public that should be covered by planning? Okay. And anything for good of the order? Wow, record time. We're going to go ahead and adjourn to our next scheduled meeting of October 18th. Thank you, everybody, for your hard work and your interest and participation.
You know,
Woo.
sharing the meeting.
Sure.